very many myths, misconceptions. We have had some facts, and we want to confirm about the risks and the benefits and understand much more about this vaccination process and program. Is it for me? Is it not for me? Do I benefit or not? To my extreme left is my brother, Dr. Edgar Chahurwa. We go way back with him, as far back as primary school. So I've known him for long, and he's a gifted man, a man of many hats. He serves in several hospitals. Among them is Victoria Hospital. And there he manages, among others, a ward of patients who have COVID. So he knows firsthand what COVID is like. He knows what it means to see people survive COVID. He has also known what it means to see people die from COVID. He can tell us more when his time comes. Next on my left is another brother of mine, Dr. Junior Ndozire. We happened also to have gone to school together in our secondary life, and we somehow come from the same village. He also happens to be my cousin. So we go far with Junior too. And he's a gynecologist and an obstetrician, and COVID does affect women as well as it does affect men. I know people are waiting to ask, should a pregnant woman take the vaccine? He's going to tell us more. On my right is a very good friend of mine. In my first job, after internship, we worked together. We are very good friends, and we meet in very many forums. He's one of those people who tests people for COVID in the whole Busoga region, or coordinates the testing of COVID in Busoga region, particularly at Jinja Regional Referral, but in the greater Busoga as well. He has so many tasks he performs, but he's the head of the laboratories at Jinja Regional Referral Laboratory. He's also a public health specialist, and he's passionate about good health for people like any of the members here. We are happy to have you, and we're ready to serve you. I'm Dr. Keith Baleta, the head of health ministries at KCC Church. I'm also a public health specialist and coordinate, among others, COVID support and support activities from USAID in Busoga region, particularly with respect to COVID. That's a budget of around $800,000 for this year. That is just COVID. So we, at all aspects, support activities to do with COVID and COVID vaccination, and we are here to ensure that we are informed and can make the right decisions. Thank you. Over to Kasivante to lead us into the next step.
Thank you so much. The Lord is good, and all the time. Yes, we are going to have a wonderful interaction this afternoon, and good enough the people before us are not new to us, and therefore the interaction should be free-flowing. And we know, as Dr. Keith has already put it forward, that there is a little bit of anxieties, a little bit of hopes, and now that we've even reported some case of the Indian potent type of COVID, so I know the fears are multiplying. But before we go into the discussion, I want to request my brother Edgar to give us a small introduction and overview, and then we shall go into the discussion together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Sabbath. I'm privileged to be part of a great team this afternoon as we try to tackle what has become the world's greatest fear. We're going to try to run very fast as we follow on the projections of what exactly COVID-19 is like and what vaccination is. I want to believe we're all following. We'll start from the definition point. of what is a vaccine. So a vaccine is a substance that is used to stimulate the production of antibodies and to provide immunity against one or several diseases prepared from the causative agent of a disease, its products, or a synthetic substitute treated to act as an antigen without inducing the disease. The main role of a vaccine is to stimulate your body to build immunity against a particular virus or bacteria. So this vaccine is introduced into your body and the body builds immunity against it. So when you become infected by that particular virus, the body has already mounted an immune response. The mechanism of action, over years, vaccines save millions of lives. They work by training and preparing the body's natural defenses, which is the immune system, to be able to recognize and fight off the viruses and bacteria that these particular vaccines target. After vaccination, if the body later is exposed to these diseases or the causative germs, the body is immediately ready to destroy them, thus preventing illness. To the COVID-19, there are several COVID-19 vaccines that have been and are being made. We're still waiting for one to come from Uganda, from the scientific teams. Since the inception of COVID-19, currently we have about 10 that have been rolled out for use, of which we are commonly using about 4. The common ones that run through our minds are Pfizer, Moderna, the AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. You realize that from these 4, currently in Uganda we have AstraZeneca. We'll look at the effectiveness of all these vaccines. In a clinical trial, Pfizer says its vaccine was 95% effective in preventing COVID-19 cases with symptoms and 100% effective when it came to preventing severe cases. Moderna cited similar results with 94% efficacy. Johnson & Johnson found its vaccine, which was tested in the US amidst a large surge in COVID-19 transmission, was 72% effective overall and 86% effective in preventing severe disease. The most recent US trials show that AstraZeneca was 79% effective at preventing symptomatic COVID-19 cases and was 100% effective in stopping severe cases and hospitalization. We're expecting, most of us right now are concerned about the side effects of these vaccines if we choose to take the shot or the jab, as it is commonly called lately. All the 3 approved vaccines have the same common side effects by the Center of Disease Control: pain, redness, and or swelling in the arm where you get the shot. For all of us who have had vaccines, not necessarily the COVID vaccine, you'll definitely have these symptoms from any other vaccine, as long as it is through an injection. The others they will cause is tiredness, headaches, chills, fevers, and nausea. However, there has been a concern over blood clots, which prompted several European countries to halt the use of AstraZeneca vaccine. However, the European Medicines Agency has concluded after an investigation that the vaccine did not raise the overall risk of blood clots, but could not rule out that it was connected to 2 very rare types of clots. In the most recent US trials of 20,000 people, experts found no increased risk of blood clots. There are several, like I said, common vaccines that are being used, but we'll zero down to the current one in Uganda. We're mainly using AstraZeneca for reasons possibly that we'll find out later. You may be wondering why we don't have the other vaccines. The Ministry of Health statement on COVID-19 vaccination in Uganda, by the time we made this presentation, the cumulative number of COVID-19 confirmed cases in Uganda was 40,367, which I believe has quite increased to very high numbers. And the validated COVID-19 deaths were 334. The recoveries were at 14,989. Kampala continues to record and report the highest number of COVID cases and deaths in the country, contributing about 48% of the national figure for both cases and deaths. Currently, the following regions are the main transmission hotspots: West Nile and the Elgon sub-regions. In March, Uganda received the initial batch of 864,000 AstraZeneca vaccines, to be specific, on the 5th of March, and on the 10th of March, vaccination programs were rolled out. For Uganda, they were phased because the number of vaccines that we had were not enough to be able to give to the entire public in a single rollout. The government intends to vaccinate about 22 million people in a phased manner. Each phase is planned to cover about 20% of the population. The eligible population lies in the age of 18 years and above. So for you to qualify to have your COVID vaccine for start, you should be 18 years and above. In context of global pressure on COVID vaccine stocks, the priority persons to be vaccinated is guided by the occupational risk of infection, the risk of developing severe disease, death from COVID-19, and population characteristics. The phase 1 of vaccination will focus on health workers, security personnel, teachers, persons from the age of 50 years and above, persons with underlying health conditions below the age of 50, and other emerging high-risk and priority essential groups. This has also changed over time, and the last statement from the Ministry of Health was encouraging all of us to go and get vaccinated, irrespective of the category you belonged to. If you can have the opportunity to get your shot, please do. All persons eligible for vaccination will have to provide a national ID for citizens or a passport number for non-citizens. Eligible persons will access the vaccines from the designated vaccination centers or facilities. The vaccine will be given to eligible persons 8 weeks apart. This vaccine is given intramuscular on the left upper arm, 0.5 mils each. All vaccinated persons will be given a card that will have to present for their second dose. So please, when you get your shot, make sure they've given you a COVID card. There is a team of trained health workers based at these designated vaccination points to provide services. All the health workers will be the first to receive the vaccine. This is because they are at the front line in response to COVID-19. The rest of the groups will follow as stipulated above. The next statement is the SDA Church statement on COVID-19 vaccine. What does the church say? When you go on there are rumors and conspiracy theories that the use of COVID-19 vaccine as an interpretation and or fulfillment of prophecy. We asked the General Conference Biblical Research Institute for comments in this regard, and the response is as follows. The global upheaval caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has generated considerable speculations related to end-time events and misinterpretations of the Bible. One recent view propagated through social media and some internet websites has put forward the theory that the upcoming vaccine produced to combat COVID-19 belonged to a process of control that will lead to the application of the mark of the beast. It should be noted, however, that the Adventists hold to the conviction that the end-time controversy will center on the law of God and particularly on the fourth commandment, Revelation chapter 14, verse 12. Moreover, the third angel's message will warn against the reception of the mark, Revelation chapter 14, verses 9 to 11. The third angel will also enlighten humankind as to the issues involved. For this reason, it should be made clear that the Seventh-day Adventists understand the mark of the beast to be not a literal mark, but a sign of allegiance, and that identifies the bearer as loyal to the power represented by the beast. From a distinct perspective, another speculative view argues that vaccines make those who have taken them unclean because supposedly unclean substances are used to produce them. In this regard, it should be clarified that the abiding biblical instructions forbidding the consumption of unclean foods and blood, written in the book of Leviticus chapter 11 from verse 1 to verse 20, and Leviticus chapter 17 from verse 11 to 12, do not apply to vaccines, for the obvious reason that vaccines are not produced as food, but rather medication to save lives. Speculations such as these bring the word of God into disrepute and cause confusion among sincere but less informed believers. Using the introduction of a vaccine to stir up an eschatological scenario of spiritual and cosmic proportions, or to oppose it on the basis of a faulty interpretation of the scripture, only distracts sincere believers from the real prophetic issues and the Adventist church commitment to proclaim the gospel. Hopefully, an effective vaccine will help to prevent the current pandemic to the halt. This will protect the lives of those who will need to know about the gospel, as well as those who have already accepted the gospel and are thus charged with the proclamation of God's infinite love to a suffering world. The Adventist Health Ministries is firmly based on the Bible, the instruction of the Spirit of Prophecy through Ellen White, and is consonant with peer-reviewed evidence-based health science. We rely on this foundation in formulating health approaches and advice. With millions infected and many dead, and the global infections on an increase, a number of vaccines have been developed in record time. These are numerous questions people are asking regarding the COVID-19 vaccine. Therefore, in conclusion, immunization, along with sanitation, clean water, has been foundational to the improved longevity seen around the world where these interventions have been applied. Vaccines have long been used by Adventist church members throughout the world, along with good health practices. They have provided protection against many infections and prevented illnesses and death. As we witness the global magnitude of the pandemic, the deaths and disabilities, and long-term COVID-19 effects that are emerging in all age groups, we are encouraging our members to consider responsible immunization and the promotion and facilitation of the development of what is commonly termed as herd immunity, which is the pre-existing community immunity of approximately 80% of individuals as a result of previous infection and or vaccination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Edgar, for the wonderful presentation. Sure enough, to give us an insight. And as I said, this is going to be a very interactive discussion. And I wanted to, before we open it up, to maybe help you up to patch up the major points that Dr. Edgar has put forward. And he has laid or delivered a number of, has told us that vaccines help to educate the body to fight diseases and help it, thus diverting the extreme outcomes of a disease. And he has also told us that vaccines have prevented many deaths across the world from various infectious diseases. And so he has also said without vaccines, we would get many epidemics and many people would die. In regards to COVID vaccines, he has said there are mainly 5, but Uganda is mainly using 1. That's AstraZeneca. That's from Oxford. To collect very well. And he has said that of COVID cases in Uganda, 48% are from Kampala. So which means you're part of the greater risk region and those districts which are on the border points. The government has also rolled out a vaccine program in a phased manner. That was another very key point he has put forward. And the eligibility is 18 years and above. And somebody will ask why, so I know that we're going to be boiling our heads to answer that question. And so MOH, that's the Ministry of Health, encourages us to go for vaccination. And he has said that make sure that after vaccination, you must get a card. So do not forget your card when you go for the vaccination. He has also read a long statement from the church, but a summary of it is that the church encourages us to go and get vaccinated. And to buttress that point, the church says that COVID-19 as a disease and its vaccines is not a fulfillment of prophecy. And those 13 points I've noted down summarizes what Dr. Edgar Chahura is trying to put forward. But it doesn't stop us from asking the experts here. And I'm going to start from my brother Keith here. And I know I represent 30% of you, so the 70% of the questions is going to come from you. And Dr. Keith, I know that everyone here, COVID-19 is not news. Around the same time last year, I used to drive alone on the road from Kampala to Jinja. Everyone was locked up. So even the young ones got to know about what? COVID-19. But isn't it overrated to cause fear in us? Several people are saying, I think government wants to use COVID to create fear and lock us up. Can you tell us a bit about the risk of COVID currently and the prevalence that it is, point prevalence we have today? Thank you.
Thank you, Kasivante. Sometimes we call him Mwalimu. With regards to COVID, of course, the risk varies depending on the age. That was initially how it was. It varied depending on age, with people above 50 at higher risk and increasing by around 10% for every age you add. Similarly, if you had other diseases along, in which chronic diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, you're overweight, and others, for each disease you had, add 10% risk to that. If you had hypertension, if you are 50, or let's say 60, you are at 10%. You have high blood pressure, you're at 20%. You have diabetes, you're at 30%. You add on others, kidney disease, you're at now at 40%. If you reach 40% of dying, you become 50-50 to be alive or to be dead, in case you get it. That was then. We are in a situation where we are having changing variants. The disease changes as it tries to ensure that it stays alive, because it is like a parasite. It cannot live outside of a human being anymore. So it has to change to continue surviving, because if the young are surviving, then probably it is adapting. And that's what we are calling variants. I'm confident of time that we have to be out of here by 4 or a bit after 4. So the variants are now being seen more commonly in young people, as is the case with the South African variant. I don't want to name them by name. Others call them B1351. There's the UK variant, which is more common in young people now, B1117. We have the one in Brazil, which is P1 and P2, not primary classes, but those are common in young people. And we now have the Indian variant, which is so deadly. It is called super spreader variant, meaning that if it comes, almost everyone in church here would get it. And I hear it's now in Uganda. Luckily, it was found as an imported case and may be contained before it becomes big. The take-home message is do whatever it takes within your means to be vaccinated and to stay safe if you are eligible or if you can get it, so that you can minimize opportunities of the disease doing you bad. It's not a guarantee that by vaccination you will not get it, but if you do get it, which is a reduced chance if you are doing the other precautions, then your chance of severe disease is severely reduced. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Keith. Dr. Keith speaks a bit softly, and you might take the points he's trying to put forward a bit lightly. But what Keith is saying that the original COVID that came out of a laboratory, or no, not laboratory, but from Wuhan, it has changed. It's no longer the other one. It has a bit changed. And this one, the variants he has named so far, he's saying that all of us who watch news, that the cases in India points to a very super spreader virus. And sadly, recently, the ministry has already pointed at an index case, and therefore, good enough, it was an imported case, but he's saying that there is chance that we can get to a worse situation. In summary, he's saying that the risk of COVID has not gone away completely, even after relaxation of the SOPs, of the directives that President was giving. But we still have more questions. You know, Dr. Edgar didn't paint for us a picture of how does a COVID patient look like. For many of the people, you know, Uganda, we didn't get a chance to have at least a clip. The South Africans got us a clip of how COVID presents. But can you paint for us a picture of how you've seen COVID patients? Because that missed out a little bit, and we need to know how does it present, and in a short 1 minute or two before I come to Dr. Junior.
Thank you very much. On a large scale, most COVID patients are actually asymptomatic. So the fact that we are mainly asymptomatic is even your very own next neighbor could be having COVID-19, but has no symptoms. And that is common in people that are below the age of 50. However, like any other disease, we have the mild forms of COVID-19, the moderate and severe forms, and the very critical ones. Now, when it goes into the mild to moderate forms of COVID-19, then the respiratory symptoms will present, because it is mainly a respiratory illness. So you'll have a sore throat, cough, dry cough. You'll have flu-like symptoms, headache, loss of taste and smell, fevers ranging from low-grade to very high-grade fevers, joint pains, and then difficulties in breathing, especially on exertion, in mild forms. In the severe forms, you have an enhancement of all the previous symptoms, but with difficulties in breathing and shortness of breath, even without exertion. Or someone can hardly maintain a speech. Now, that's how most people will present. They can hardly breathe. Now, when you go into the investigation part, the first cardinal investigation they will do, of course, will be your PCR to rule out, to check for COVID-19. The next will be a chest CT scan. We call it a high-resolution CT scan. To those who have had an opportunity to look at those CT scans of patients in critical or severe illnesses, the lungs have been eaten out completely. It will start at the lung bases, then come into the peripherals of your lungs, and before you know, your entire lung is white. Now, by the time a person reaches that category, they are 100% oxygen dependent, they are on support machines, and their chances of them returning is very minimal. So, to the church and the public, I'll tell you that COVID-19 is as bad as the word COVID-19 is. You wouldn't want to say, since it can be asymptomatic, I'll be okay. No. You can easily slip into the other side of severe illness, and it is not nice. Yes.
Thank you so much. Maybe before you put the mic down, you've been prompted. What could be the cost of treating COVID? Just in a minute still.
To the government facilities.
Estimate in the private.
In a private sector, it will cost a hand and a leg. Because in facilities, largely, when you bring in a patient that requires to be admitted for severe cases of COVID, they will tell you to deposit 10 million. 10 deposit. Within 2 or 3 days, they will be giving you a financial statement actually showing you that your 10 million is done and you're in deficit of about another 3 or 4.
To deposit.
So depending on how long you stay in the facility, COVID could cost you as much as something above 50 million. I've had a person very close to me that has been in a COVID unit for actually only 10 days. And after 10 days, our financial statement was close to 30 million. Yes. So how many of us could afford to part with 30 million in 10 days? You realize it becomes very, very, very expensive and catastrophic when you have to pass or to part with 30 million in 10 days.
Thank you. In other words, Dr. Edgar is saying that actually prevention is better than what? Than treatment. And even after the 30 million, you may not regain. Let me come to Dr. Junior, and the rest of the minutes are yours. You'll come closer and you get a mic and then you ask your question. Dr. Junior, does COVID and its vaccines cause impotence? I have seen people very scared that the vaccines might cause infertility and lead to impotence. Actually, men are fearing more than women. Maybe you have a different experience.
Thank you very much. To answer your question directly, no. The COVID vaccine does not cause impotence. Before vaccines are rolled out, or before drugs are rolled out to the population, there are phases of trials. They go through phase 1, 2, 3, and then they are rolled out. So in all those phases, what they are trying to look at is how effective are they? Will they work? That's why he showed you the AstraZeneca is 76%. So that's how good it works. The other vaccines are 95%. Then the other thing they look out for, how safe are they? If they gave it to you, are you likely to die from the vaccine? What kind of side effects are you going to get? So they follow those people that they first start, of course, with animals, then they give to human beings. But in all those phases, there has not been any a problem of infertility or impotence or affecting the reproductive system of someone generally. So they are safe.
Yes. Thank you so much. We open now to the rest of the church. You need to come closer and you ask your question, or somebody can help us to move the mic. So we are going to take a maximum of 6 questions, and I wanted to see those 6 hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, good enough. We have fewer hands. Okay, 5. And we are going to start with her. Then we come to her, and then we shall follow that route. Thank you. Make the questions quite shorter.
Thank you so much. From the definition of the vaccine, you either get a substance that looks, is it a substance, something that looks like a virus itself, inject it in someone to build antigens. Okay. Your antibodies to fight the virus itself. Then there are scenarios where you're given actually the virus itself in a weaker version. Yeah? So my question is this one, the COVID one, is it like a substance like of a virus, or it's actually the real virus? What if I die?
Okay. That's a good one, and I think Keith will pick that, and Dr. Junior here will pick that. Another person, I saw some hands. Okay, yes. But I missed your name. We need to get some names. What's your name again? Joan, yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Sokwa Ivan. I'm so glad for the opportunity of the doctors to be around. My very own dad got COVID,
Okay.
and he was treated for something like 2 weeks. And from the bill they gave us, I was scared to go back to ask other questions. But I wanted to ask, when the vaccine came, for him, he got COVID treatment, and he got healed. And is it okay for him to still go for the vaccination? And then number two, when he did the medication, he didn't have diabetes. And after the medication, he has diabetes. But now, after some time, we've been able to contain the diabetes. So if he goes for the vaccination, won't the diabetes go out of order? And then number three is when he was in hospital, we took a scan, as he said about it, and they said he had COVID-19 pneumonia, and the lungs were white. It was showing white down below here, but up it was still okay. And after that, he became okay, after the hospital experience. But he rides a motorbike. Right now, he feels okay. But someone told us, no, he should not ride a bike again. Is it wrong for him to ride a bike? Or since now he got the medication, he's okay. Basically, he doesn't feel anything bad. The only thing he has is diabetes and, basically diabetes and issues in the stomach. So is riding a bike bad for him? Yeah, basically that's one.
Okay, before you go to another person, let us first answer those ones. But as you move to the next person, in the interest of time, Joan A is saying that can't this is the content of this vaccine we're using, the one which is viral active, and can't that virus actually become active again and clear us? She has a little bit of fear as well. And I want Keith, if you and Junior to say something about that.
Thank you, Joan, for your concerns. What is the virus? Is it a living virus, a dead virus? There are different kinds of vaccines, as Dr. Edgar pointed out. There are those which use just a component of the dead virus to wake up the immune system. Those are like the AstraZeneca, like the Pfizer vaccine, like the Moderna vaccine. Then there are others which use dead viruses, dead COVID viruses in this case, just like you use when you get DPT for children or tetanus vaccine. They use a dead tetanus to help wake up your immunity. We don't have that one here. There are some Chinese vaccines of that kind, and others in India. It's called Bharat. Bharat is around 80% effective. It works very, very well. The advantage of that dead virus is that it is resembling COVID, and the body will recognize anything, the brothers and the cousins, or the changed COVID with the dead one. The disadvantage of just using a portion of COVID, of a bit, what they call the antigen, a bit of it, is if it changes, sometimes you don't get the whole protection like when it was with the original COVID from which it was extracted from. So the one in Uganda just uses a small bit, what they would call an antigen, a bit of the surface of the germ to wake up your immunity. You may ask, but yes, I heard there's a sort of like a virus there. Yes, there is one. They are different. In addition to to giving you an exposure to that so-called bit which wakes up your body, it must be delivered to the body in a way which will allow it to be woken up. That is called vaccine delivery. In this case, they get a mild, harmless, common cold virus to deliver the vaccine to the body. They first disable that vaccine, they remove the virus of the common cold, the part which multiplies. That gene which multiplies is removed, and then it can have that small antigen of COVID which wakes up your body. So yes, there's a component of another virus which is used to deliver the germ, the part of the COVID antigen which wakes up your immune system. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible.
Yes, I know the stresses Dr. Keith is passing through to tone down the deeper immunologies of
It
this.
is like going from here to your home. Your objective is to reach Chireka, but you need a taxi to take you to Chireka.
Yeah.
That taxi in this case is just a common cold virus which has been disabled, not to multiply, but not a weekend COVID as in the case of the Uganda COVID vaccine which you are using. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have a word to especially if you're in response to.
I'm going to answer the gentleman's questions, but in addition to what Keith was saying, before you develop a vaccine, you must make sure that it's not causing disease. Okay? That if I give you a vaccine, instead of it giving you the immunity, you instead get the disease. Then that is not a vaccine. Okay? So the preparations that go on to develop a vaccine make sure that this vaccine that is developed cannot produce disease in you when it is given to you. Because what is being given right now in the AstraZeneca is a particle of the COVID, of the SARS-CoV, you know. So that particle cannot cause disease to you, but your body will recognize it as an external thing, that it wakes up the antibodies, and then your body builds an immunity to fight the real virus when you get it. You understand? Yeah, so it does not, in all the studies during the development of the vaccine, no one got sick of COVID. Okay, so it is really safe.
Okay. Thank you. There is somebody who took it, who took treatment for COVID.
Yes.
And they did got instead diabetes.
That's what I'm going to answer. So when you, yes, so when you get a disease, okay, for example, let's say you've got malaria. Malaria is also a disease. Your body builds some little bit of immunity after you've got a disease, okay? But the problem is we don't know how long that immunity is going to take, all right? Most likely to reach some point, and then the body will forget if you're not constantly suffering from that disease, okay? So people who have got COVID-19 disease are also encouraged to get the immunization, all right? Because we don't know, yes, they got the disease, they got some bit of immunity, but we don't know how long that is going to take, because this has been abrupt. No one has studied to know that when you get COVID-19, it takes these years for you to be protected. So we encourage everyone, whether you got the disease or not, to actually get the immunization. Then you asked a question about your dad who came from the hospital with diabetes, okay? So diabetes is a disease of an imbalance in your blood sugars, okay? Either something that is supposed to take away the sugars into the cells is faulty, or the cells are rejecting to take the sugar, okay? So it builds up in your body, so you can't control the sugars. Now, there are many things that can cause that. Either, because part of the treatment of COVID involves giving steroids. Steroids can give you diabetes if taken for a long time. That's one. Number two, the stress. Whenever your body is under stress, you produce cortisol. Cortisol is a steroid, okay? You produce cortisol. Now that can also give you diabetes. So if now disease, whenever you get sick, your body is under stress. So you're producing this cortisol in high levels. You're also getting the steroids for the treatment of COVID. So maybe that is an explanation. But the other explanation is that he might have had pre-diabetic, he might have been in a pre-diabetic state, not yet diagnosed, not yet full-blown for him to get the symptoms, but it was there. It needed something small to push for him to get that. So moving forward, you just have to manage his sugars, and then he'll be all right. should he ride a bike? I think it is all right to ride a bike. You know, riding a bike requires you to use your chest. Now, Dr. Edgar will explain to us there are post-COVID syndromes where your chest can no longer do the things you used to do before because it is already compromised. You have scars in your chest. But as long as you're still fit, you should exercise. So he should ride his bike. I think a motorbike is even, it wouldn't have an effect on him. If he has a helmet, it is all right, but it's safe for him to have a helmet. Yes, to protect him from head injuries. That's all. Thank you.
A mask on as he rides.
No.
Since he talks about the wind entering him, and maybe a
No,
mask.
but it is very safe for him to ride his
Ride a
bike. In short. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Let us get some two more. The hands are sprouting, but we shall take two in the interest of time and make them quite very short.
Yeah.
Four
Happy,
more. Okay.
Happy Sabbath Church.
Happy day.
Happy day.
Happy Sabbath.
I'm by names of Prince Jordans. My question is that immunization, does it have any side effect? Does that have those effects?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a good question. Another person? Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the team. My concern is from what I heard, that there is a P1, a P2, and something variant. Basically, it's COVID in the younger age. And they don't tend to be very health aware. So are we more at risk? Because for us, they are like, wash their hands, wear the mask. Now, what do we do for the younger ones? Are they getting a vaccine? All I'm trying to project is how ready is Uganda? If Uganda is not ready, what can we do at maybe a household level to see that we contain? Because to the best of my knowledge, I think there's about 3 schools in Kampala that have closed. They're like, we are closing since the thing is in children, but they're throwing them back at home. And you look at them and you're like, okay, I love you, but you may be bringing me disease. What do I do?
Okay. Are we at peace?
Good evening. I'm Mabel Nakanwaj. Good evening, pulpit team. My concern is, are we safe? Because are we sure about the safety of the vaccine? Because many times the government has put up vaccinations on children and on polio and ammonia, is it pneumonia, and those other things on the market. But later, after they've been used, later they come up and they say that the vaccine was wrong. When children have died, those lifeguard condoms, when people have used them in millions, and people, we are not safe, and everyone is panicking. So how safe are we to trust the government that this time round the vaccine is the right one? Maybe after 2 months they'll come up and they say the other one was wrong, and now we have a new one.
Okay, that's a serious question, eh? That raises the temperature a little bit, eh? But let us take the last one.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is David. I have seen a lot of side effects as you put them on the projector. But I'm mainly concerned about only one side effect, which is about blood clots. That thing is very terrible. Actually, it can kill someone. So even if they say in 1 million, one person is likely to die, you know that I don't want to be that one person in a million.
Okay.
So could you please explain briefly how, because I'm afraid of that side effect, mainly that one. The rest I know they are normal, and if you get the headache, being tired and others, it's okay, they will go with time. But the one of blood clots is very serious. Please say something about it.
So, thank you. Are we done with the 4 questions? Okay, that very last one.
Good afternoon, James. Happy Sabbath.
Happy day.
Now, I have just 2 questions with regard to the vaccine here. has it got a negative effect on people with AIDS? Those people living with AIDS?
Okay.
2, has it got a very negative effect on pregnant women? Those are the 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the questions, for the 6+ questions. To summarize for the panel here, so that we can take as the least time as possible, her question is still inquiring whether we're safe. I think Dr. Andoziri and Dr. Balita made the statement that we're safe. At least I heard that right. He said we are safe from the vaccine, and for the vaccine we are safe. Dr. Keith said the risk for contracting COVID is still high. But she raises a question I don't know is fit to speak on behalf of government.
Let me try to answer that. Now, one,
he works for government.
The government is not trying to kill you. That's one thing you need to know. If it kills you, it won't get tax from you. So it's not business. So the government wants you healthy. So number 2, the safety of the vaccines. They are very safe because they go through processes. Whether before you get a drug, let me use a simple drug like Panadol. Before a drug like Panadol, it has gone through lots of testing to make sure that if it is delivered to you, it will be safe. Okay, in given doses, at a given temperature, all right, in a given form. Now, what might have changed in those circumstances that you gave? The kids got sick, but I don't think kids died because of vaccination. They might have got sick because vaccines will get you a fever, so the child will get a fever, and fevers in children are really a big thing. All right. So depending on how stored, all right? Depending on how the vaccine is stored, if it is stored at a temperature which is below its minimum, the vaccine is going to lose its potency. Its potency is how good it works. So there are many things. There's a reason why Uganda is not getting the Pfizer vaccine, because those vaccines need to be stored at degrees -80 degrees. We cannot afford that, okay? So if you change that temperature, you change the potency of the vaccine, and that can cause disease actually, all right? But the vaccines that we're giving, they are cold chain, I think -8 degrees, and that we can afford, and they are safe, all right? I've got it, I think he's got it, Keith has got it, you've also got it, Kes. We have all got it. None of us has died yet, okay? We are still safe. Many people have got it, and we are all safe. So about safety, it is really safe. He's going to talk about let me finish my questions. About pregnant women. The gentleman there asked about pregnant women. Yeah, and HIV patients. One, there's no effect, okay, on HIV people, all right? If you have HIV, the vaccine doesn't have a negative effect on you if you use it, okay? Number 2, Keith might elaborate more on that, about pregnant women. Now, during the development of vaccines, they do not test pregnant women, and they do not test children. The reason children are not tested because they cannot consent for themselves. Every time there is a drug being developed, those trials, they will have to consent that I agree to take part in this trial, and they explain to you the likely side effects you might get, then they monitor you and see which other side effects you're likely to get. Now, children cannot consent for themselves, so they are excluded from those trials, okay? Pregnant women likewise are also excluded from those trials because we don't know what effects will be on the fetus, on the baby they are carrying, okay? So during the development of the COVID vaccines, no pregnant woman was involved. But some people got pregnant while they were getting the vaccine, all right? Also, some people were pregnant and they did not know when they got the vaccine. Now, when those people were followed up, there was no effect on the baby, all right? So it's safe to say that a pregnant woman can take the vaccine. This is the reason. Getting COVID-19 as a pregnant woman, okay, you are likely to get severe disease compared to a woman who is not pregnant. Severe disease, we are talking about you being admitted to ICU, okay, when you're pregnant. So it is safe for you to take the vaccine because it doesn't really have an effect on your baby. It doesn't have an effect on you. But if you got the disease itself, you're likely to have more serious issues. So it is safe. Yes, in Uganda during the rollout, because of that connotation that they did not study pregnant women, they didn't roll out to give to every pregnant woman. But those at risk, if a pregnant woman is at risk, has maybe asthma, has hypertension, I would advise them to actually get the vaccine. Okay? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Edgazi comes on the floor. There is a gentleman, I think Keith will compute this for him. He says, even if it's that one person, but that one person may be him. Okay, yes, Edgar.
Thank you very much. We'll talk about the side effects of getting vaccinated. We go back to the grassroots. All of us have gone through the phase of immunization. I want to believe. While our children have gone through immunization. Those that have little ones who have gone for their shots for immunization, when they come back home, they are crying throughout the night. Reason for crying is they have pain in their thighs because they were given an injection. The injection area sometimes turns red. Now, me, I'm black. Definitely, I won't turn red. But then the other effect will be they develop fevers. So sometimes parents end up buying a few syrups of paracetamol so that when the child develops fevers, they're able to combat the fevers. Now, the effects of COVID-19 vaccine, there will be pain at the injection site, like any other injection. There will be swelling, there will be redness at that point. Then the others will be dizziness. It can be immediate, it can be later, after about 24 hours. Muscle ache and muscle pain, low-grade fevers, headache, dizziness. Now, the side effects differ from one individual to another. I got my shot, I didn't have any side effects. Up to now, I don't have any side effects. I have colleagues who got their shots and had to take 2 days off to first pick themselves up again because they're not feeling fine. So these side effects differ from one individual to another. The gentleman asked about blood clots. Of course, you don't want to be part of the statistics of you're the only individual who suffered a clot. I would want to understand that. But you see, people get clots even without the vaccination. And from the studies that were done, both by the European Society and the American Food Society, they realized that out of the 20,000 people who they used to act as who participated in the study, none was predisposed to getting a clot necessarily. So the COVID-19 vaccine, especially the AstraZeneca vaccine, has shown or has been proved not to cause risk of blood clots in the individuals that get it. Back to Uganda, for about, we're about 400,000 vaccines that have been rolled out. We don't have any single case reported that someone has got a clot. We don't have any single case reported that someone has got COVID-19 as a result of the vaccine. So to Uganda, we can say the vaccine has been safe and is still safe. The lady brought the last question of what is the effect of COVID-19 in 10 years? Now, that is me acting God. I don't know. I cannot tell what the disease will be when it is hardly a year or two in the country. So maybe 10 years down the road, it will be like the Spanish flu. It will no longer be in existence and we'll be back to the normal life.
Or it might get variants, like we already
So,
have.
to answer more about the clots, now we have people in our society who are at risk of getting clots, with or without getting vaccinated. Now, when you're rolling out a vaccine and you're giving these people vaccines, those people also come and get the vaccine. Now, it doesn't mean that getting the vaccine gives you the clot, but you might be in the process of getting the clot and then you get the vaccine. So there's people associate that with the vaccine. So the studies that were conducted, of course, when you're doing studies, you have to make sure an association is, there's a direct cause, that when I gave the vaccine, it caused a clot. You have to rule out other things that might have confounded your results. So the studies that were done, they went to the minute and looked at the characteristics of those individuals who got clots. And they found they had other risk factors that could have given them the clot, not necessarily the vaccine.
Okay, as we wrap up, we're going to give Keith 1 minute to give a wrap up, then we shall close this session.
Thank you. You ask now, he has talked about side effects. What should I do? What should I do if you get the vaccine? First of all, getting some few side effects like a fever, muscle aches, means that the vaccine is actually working.
Yeah.
It means it's a good thing. It means that the vaccine is what? Actually working and the immune system is waking up. But you don't need to experience the worst or those side effects so much. You take a Panadol as soon as you finish getting the vaccine. Continue taking it every 8 hours for like 2 or 3 days. And you'll drink plenty and you'll be fair. We have gone through that, all of us, and we didn't get major issues. Someone asked about blood clots. My risk, I'm 1 in a million. I don't want to die of a clot. If you feel, as the doctors have pointed out earlier, the risk of the association between clots and the vaccine doesn't seem to be direct. Nevertheless, if you have that fear, take what they call a heart aspirin for like 2 to 3 weeks. It's 75 milligrams, like a small tablet. It will reduce your risk of clots from other causes, so that you are having a reduced fear of anything of that sort. I also want to say that your risk of COVID is much higher than your risk of what? Of COVID vaccine-related clots. Much, much, much higher. Especially if you come from a border area, if you come from a country where it is much higher. So in line with what our sister asked about variants, what should we do? They are coming P1, P2, is there P3 or P4?
There's even a Ugandan variant.
There's even Ugandan variant from the north at the border there. What should we do? Our children are in school, some are getting it. You can first take the steps for precautions we have mentioned all along. You know, we have relaxed a lot on SOPs. Go back. Use your mask when in public settings. 2, sanitize. Avoid mass gatherings as much as possible. 4, get vaccinated. The vaccine will reduce your risk of getting COVID. It will also reduce your risk of getting severe, even further, your risk of getting what? Severe disease. And I know along the way, even we'll get, probably by the time you're getting your second shot, there might be booster doses which are able to manage those P1, P2s and others, because that's what they are working on. And the process is not going to be as long as developing the first vaccine. I think that is all from me.
Okay. Thank you so much, my friends and panelists, for this wonderful knowledge you've shared. And thank you so much for participating. I want to say that for information regarding your health, trust the experts. Please, I want to request you that for information regarding health, listen to the what? To the experts. The SAGE report, recent report, has listed vaccine hesitancy as one of the top 10 global threats. People out of the blue refusing or creating myths about vaccines. And this exposes us to a number of epidemics. So I want to thank you again, and I request you again that for information regarding your health and disease, ask the experts. And good enough, this church is organized, and we have a health ministries department for issues related to reproductive systems. Dr. Katali is here. For general things, Dr. Edgar is here with us. For public health, prevention, and even general diseases, Dr. Keith is here. And for me, as you know, I'm just an intellectual. You can produce philosophies around your diseases. So, plus any other doctors. So, there is no reason to be sick, and you be sick, and then you come to the health facilities when nothing can be done about your situation. Yet your church has doctors and a number of health workers. Thank you so much. The panel was Dr. Edgar Chahura, Dr. Katari Jr., Dr. Keith, and myself, Samuel Kasibante. And God bless you. Stand up, and we have a word of prayer. Yes, let us pray. Lord, we are so grateful this afternoon for the wonderful session you've given us. We've been given knowledge freely, but there is a role on our part to turn that knowledge into effectivity by behavioral change. I pray, Lord, that your people take up this information and change their behavior. We pray, Lord, that you continue keeping us, that we get no church member dying of COVID and any other illness. And may you, Lord, keep us till you come again. In Jesus' name I've prayed.